Hello, my name is Stella. My sister stormed in with scissors and hacked my hair off while I screamed, and my mother held me still, not to stop her, but to help her. Let her vent, she said. Our angel needs to release. And my father? He didn't flinch. Just hair, he barked from the other room. You're lucky. But what came after was worse. They didn't stop at my hair. They stole my scholarship, my future, my name from family photos. So I took pictures. I kept records. I stayed quiet, until now. Why did they work so hard to erase me? And what happens when the one you erased decides to rewrite the ending? I had just finished laying out my navy blouse and tan slacks for the interview. The scholarship committee had been clear. Business casual, portfolio in hand, hair neat and professional. I took my time brushing through my long dark hair, smoothing every strand. It was the one part of myself I never questioned. My reflection in the bathroom mirror finally felt steady. For a moment, I believed I might actually belong in a room of people who made decisions about futures. I didn't hear her come in. The door slammed behind Callista like a trap snapping shut. Her footsteps weren't angry, they were purposeful, like she had been rehearsing this. She didn't say a word at first, just stood behind me, breathing heavy. I turned around slowly, my brush still in hand. What's your problem? I asked. I kept my voice level. Her eyes were wild, rimmed red like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. She clenched something in her hand. I didn't see it clearly until the silver caught the light. Scissors. Don't, I said, not screamed, not begged, just one word, soft but clear. She lunged. Before I could raise an arm or even move, she grabbed a fistful of my hair and yanked. I screamed, not because it hurt, not at first, but because I knew what she was about to do. She shoved me forward, slammed my hip into the bathroom counter. With her free hand, she began hacking. Snip, snip, rip. Chunks of my hair fell like feathers. Some clung to my shirt, some floated into the sink. She cut without rhythm or reason, just furious motion, as if my hair were the reason her world wasn't working. I tried to fight back, grabbed her wrist, elbowed her ribs, but she was stronger, and worse, she didn't care what damage she caused. Then came my mother. Callista, I cried out. Stop, Mom, she's... But Isolde didn't grab her. She didn't scream at her. She grabbed me. Don't move, my mother said, not coldly, not harsh, like it was an act of mercy. Let her vent. Our angel needs to release all that tension. You know how emotional she's been. I struggled, but her grip tightened. She actually smiled, like we were all just playing out a scene in a family comedy. Stop! Please, Mom! She's cutting my hair! I begged. Garrison's voice echoed from the living room. What's going on now? She's fine, my mother called back. Just a little hair. Then his voice, dismissive, irritated. Just hair? She's lucky. I stopped fighting, because that's the moment I realized they were never going to stop her. Callista let the scissors clatter to the floor when she was done. I looked like a chewed-up rag doll. She huffed once, looked me up and down, and walked out like she'd just completed a chore. My mother let me go, patted my arm, and said, You'll feel better once it settles in. Maybe now you won't be so tense all the time. I locked myself in the bathroom and didn't come out for hours. I didn't cry. Crying was what they wanted. They wanted me to fall apart so they could say I was too sensitive, dramatic, difficult. Instead, I picked up the scissors, the clumps of hair, and laid them on the counter. I turned on the harsh white lights above the mirror and took photos. The jagged cuts along the back of my head, the red lines on my scalp where she had pulled too hard, my blank expression staring back at me. Every angle, every wound, every piece of proof. The next morning, I stood in front of the university's administration building with my folder in hand. I'd pulled my hacked hair into the neatest bun I could manage, but it still looked uneven, frayed, like I'd been through something I couldn't name. The woman behind the desk glanced up. She smiled, but I saw her eyes pause, longer than polite, on my head. You're here for the scholarship interview? She asked. Yes. I sat in a conference room for 10 minutes. 3 men and 1 woman entered. None of them smiled. They asked about my GPA, my goals, my volunteer work. I answered as best I could, my voice steady, but I saw their glances, first at me, then at each other. By the end of the interview, the woman said, "Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch." They didn't ask for my portfolio. When I stepped outside, the wind caught my hair, or what was left of it, and it whipped into my eyes. I didn't fix it. I just stood there for a moment, breathing in the air that didn't care what happened inside my house. I walked home slowly. That evening, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. The pictures were still on my phone. I didn't delete them. I didn't send them. I didn't tell anyone. Because somewhere deep inside me, a voice I hadn't listened to in years spoke up. They were never going to protect you. They were never going to save you. So I would have to do it myself. The morning after my decision not to remain silent passed in a fog. I barely noticed the sun move across the blinds or the shadows shifting on my walls. The air in the house was heavy, not with anger, but with something worse: avoidance. Nobody came to my room, no knocking, no checking, no questions. I didn't leave the house, didn't open my phone. It buzzed now and then, maybe a classmate, maybe a reminder about an assignment, maybe someone from the scholarship board following up. But I let it ring and die in silence. It wasn't just what happened with the scissors. It was the way no one treated it as a thing that happened, like the hair just fell off by accident, like my scalp hadn't been pulled, like I wasn't bleeding underneath where no one looked. Around midday, I walked into the kitchen, hoping to grab a coffee. Isolde stood at the sink, rinsing dishes. I paused, my feet sticking to the tile like they had roots. "Why did you hold me down?" I asked. I didn't raise my voice, just said it straight, like someone asking about a missing sock. She didn't look up, just kept rinsing. "Because you were going to make it worse," she replied flatly. Worse. She said it like I was the one swinging scissors. Like defending myself from a full-grown woman slicing into my head was escalation. I didn't respond, didn't yell. I poured the coffee, hands steady, heart slower than usual. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't sound like pleading, and I'd retired from begging in this house. That afternoon, while cleaning out the bottom drawer of my closet, I found the journal I'd kept in high school. Torn corners, spiral binding bent in 3 places. Pages filled with the kind of handwriting only a teenager could think looked elegant. I flipped to an entry from my 16th birthday. "I thought the cake would have my name on it," I'd written. Just once, but it said, "Happy birthday, Callista." Again. Another page, my high school graduation. Mom asked me to take the family picture. I said okay, but later when I looked through the photos on her phone, I realized I wasn't in a single one. I turned more pages. One for Christmas when I made homemade ornaments for everyone. Callista broke half of them, threw the rest in the fireplace. Mom just smiled and said, "She's just stressed." I'd been collecting offenses like a scrapbook, pretending it was memory keeping. Reading it now, I wasn't sad. I was stunned. It had all been there, plain as day. Not just this week, not just this year, always. It was about 6 p.m. when I heard my name called from the living room. Not gently, not angrily. Just summoned, like a child being reminded where she belonged. I walked in. Garrison was on the recliner, remote in hand, but the TV off. Isolde sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Callista stood near the fireplace, arms crossed like she'd been waiting to be applauded. I stood just inside the doorway. "We'd like to move past what happened," Isolde said. No apology, no acknowledgement. Garrison nodded. "And that starts with accountability." My eyebrows raised slightly. "From who?" Isolde blinked slowly. "You need to apologize to your sister." I almost laughed. "She attacked me." "She had a moment," Garrison cut in. "Don't be dramatic. You've always been good at spinning things." "Spinning things?" I repeated. "You think I imagined being held down?" "She's under a lot of pressure," Isolde added, almost gently. "You're both adults, but Callista's business has had a tough quarter. Things have been stressful." Callista didn't say a word, just looked at me like a judge waiting for the defendant to admit guilt. "And that gives her permission to cut my hair while you pinned me like a dog?" Garrison leaned forward. You've always made everything so heavy, Stella. We need peace in this house. If you want to stay under this roof, you need to stop fueling conflict. I turned to my sister. She smirked, triumphant. She'd already won. All I had left to give was the line they were starving for. I'm sorry, I said, not quietly, not loudly, just enough for the room to hear. There, Isolde said. That wasn't so hard. Callista rolled her eyes and left the room. I stood there for a beat longer, feeling nothing, not even humiliation, just numbness, like standing in water that's gone still. Later that night, I sat on the floor of my bedroom. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that used to comfort me when I was younger, when it meant everyone was asleep and I could read or write or breathe without interruption. Now it felt like a wall of insulation, like nothing could get in, but nothing could get out either. I pulled my journal closer and wrote one line. They will never protect me. I am disposable here, but I won't be forever. I don't remember falling asleep. But I do remember waking up at 3:47 a.m. and staring at the ceiling with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. This wouldn't end with me crying in corners, or apologizing for getting hurt, or asking why the people who were supposed to love me only knew how to manage me. A shift happened. Not a roar, not a dramatic vow, just a switch. Like I stopped being afraid of being alone and started being afraid of staying here. Next time she lifts a hand, I'll be ready. That same night, after everyone had gone to bed and the house settled into its usual mechanical hush, I lay awake listening to the heater hum through the vents. I couldn't sleep, not from fear, not even from anger, but from a pulsing clarity I hadn't felt in years. If she raised her hand again, I wouldn't flinch. I would respond. Differently this time. The next morning, I skipped breakfast. The air downstairs was too tight, too careful. I heard dishes clink, Callista's fake laugh drifting from the hallway. I stayed upstairs, pacing, until the light shifted across the floor. Sometime in the late afternoon, I decided to do something small, something that felt like mine. I pulled open the bottom drawer of my dresser, one I hadn't opened in years, and found it exactly where I left it. My grandmother's scarf, faded blue with little stitches along the edge where she had taught me to sew. Inside it, like it always had been, was my old wooden hairbrush, the one she used when I was a girl, the one she always called your crown's keeper. I held it in both hands, sat on the edge of the bed, and let my mind wander. In my memory, her hands were warm, gentle but sure. She never tugged, never rushed. She'd hum old songs while brushing through my hair, saying things like, "This hair is yours and no one else's," or, "Don't ever let anyone tell you how to wear it. You wear it how you feel." It wasn't just brushing. It was care. It was belonging. I closed my eyes, held the brush against my chest, and for a moment, I let myself believe she was still in the room, watching, witnessing. That feeling didn't last long. Later that evening, after the sky had turned dark and the house quieted again, I realized I needed groceries. I hadn't left the house since the attack. I pulled on a hoodie, tucked my uneven hair under a baseball cap, and walked to the corner store about 6 blocks down. It was familiar, unremarkable, but even familiar places start to feel foreign when you don't feel safe in your own skin. As I reached the frozen section, I caught the tail end of a whisper. "Isn't that the girl? The one with the breakdown?" I turned slightly, pretending to scan the labels on a bag of peas, while my heart sped up. 2 women stood near the dairy case, pretending to not look at me. But their eyes told a different story. I blinked, pulled out my phone. Something felt off. As I walked toward checkout, I opened Instagram and searched Callista's profile. Her latest post featured a series of selfies, her hair freshly styled in soft waves, face bare, holding scissors. Caption: Big chop for mental clarity. Sometimes the hair holds the pain. Hat healing # raw beauty. The next post was worse. A shot of the bathroom floor, strands of dark hair scattered like fallen leaves. Caption: Some of us cut to grow. She had posted the aftermath. My aftermath. But it wasn't a confession, it was a narrative. One where she was the main character, bravely shedding the weight of the past. The likes were in the hundreds. Comments praising her bravery, her vulnerability. I walked home without remembering how I crossed streets or passed familiar houses. The words on the screen had settled like a cold weight inside my stomach. She hadn't just hurt me, she had made me into content, into a story that suited her. Back in my room, I shut the door, sat at my desk, and began screenshotting everything. Her posts, the captions, the comments. Especially the ones that said, "So proud of you," and "You're such an inspiration." I created a folder on my desktop and named it Her Lies. Not for revenge, for record, because if she was going to tell stories, so was I. But mine would be documented. I opened the mirror on my vanity. For the first time in over a week, I really looked at myself. The uneven hair, the small scab where she'd nicked me, the quiet sadness in my eyes. But there was something else there now. A stillness. Not the kind that waits, but the kind that watches. The kind that prepares. I picked up my phone and opened an old email account I hadn't used in years. The one I kept private. The one tied to nothing and no one in my family. I labeled a folder Proof and started uploading files. Photo of my hair post incident. Screenshot of the post. Screenshots of comments. Voice memo to myself, detailing the event. I didn't know what I'd do with them yet, but I knew I needed them. Needed to hold on to the truth before it got swept away by her performance. On a whim, I reached for my college journal, buried under a pile of books in the back of my closet. Flipping through the pages, I landed on a line I'd copied from a professor once. "If your voice shakes, write until it doesn't." That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I wrote, page after page, not for therapy, not for peace, for clarity. I chronicled every incident, every passive-aggressive comment, every moment someone told me to shrink while she was allowed to expand. I wrote like someone assembling a case, not to prosecute, but to remember. Because when they gaslight you long enough, you begin to forget what actually happened. And I was done forgetting. My grandmother once told me, people will try to rewrite you. Keep a pen in your hand. I finally understood what she meant. If Callista was going to paint herself as the phoenix, I'd show the ashes she left behind. She had turned me into a punchline, but I wasn't going to let her be the only one telling the story. And it didn't take long before the universe handed me something I hadn't expected. Proof. It was late, just past midnight. I'd gone downstairs to refill my water bottle, careful not to make noise. The hallway was dimly lit, and the kitchen door was slightly open. I heard Callista's voice before I saw her. She was on speakerphone, pacing slowly in the kitchen. I paused near the hallway corner, hidden in the shadows. Something about the sharpness in her tone made me freeze. "She thinks the haircut was the worst part," Callista said, then laughed, short, cold. "I've wanted to ruin her face for years. That stupid look she gives, like she's better than us." My blood ran cold. She paused for a moment, probably to sip her drink, before continuing. "Mom and Dad will cover for me. They always do. They don't care what I do to her." That was it. That was the moment. My hand slipped quietly into the pocket of my hoodie, fingers trembling slightly as I opened the voice recorder app. I pressed the button, held my breath. She kept talking, careless, unfiltered. She laughed again. "You should have seen her face when I chopped it. I mean, come on, she's so dramatic, always has been." I didn't stay to hear the rest. I got what I needed. I backed away slowly, walked upstairs without making a sound, and closed my door behind me, locked it. My legs gave out a little, so I sat on the floor, back pressed to the wall. I played it back. "She thinks the haircut was the worst part." Every word burned. But it also built something inside me. A clarity. I hadn't imagined the malice. It wasn't heat-of-the-moment rage. She had planned it, wanted it, knew it would hurt me, and wanted it to. And now, it wasn't just my word. I had the recording. I renamed the file. Root. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just listened to it on repeat until the sound no longer made me flinch. Just made me sharper. I was no longer reacting. I was collecting. The next morning, the kitchen was quiet again. Callista had gone out, probably for another one of her healing brunches. My mother was making coffee. She didn't look at me when I walked in. "Mom," I said calmly. She turned slightly. "If you found out Callista meant to do it, not a moment of anger, but really meant to, what would you say?" She didn't pause, didn't blink. "I'd say you probably provoked her. You always know how to get under people's skin." That was it. All the oxygen left the room, and I saw her for what she was, not just complicit, convinced. This wasn't confusion. This was conviction. Her version of me had replaced the real thing a long time ago. I looked her in the eye and said, "If it happens again, I'm not coming to you. I'm going beyond you." She froze, coffee pot in one hand, her posture still. But her face, that subtle shift in her eyes, told me everything. She knew what I meant, and for the first time, she looked unsure. I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and walked upstairs. That afternoon, I made tea, pulled out my laptop, and started digging. State assault laws. How much force constituted a misdemeanor? What kinds of incidents were considered domestic violence between siblings? Whether or not voice recordings were admissible in court in California, the answer was yes. If one party knew it was being recorded, I printed everything. Then I looked into guardianship rules. Turns out, since I was technically still tied to my mother's name on certain legal documents, including financial aid paperwork, there were angles, fraud, negligence, possibly more, if I could prove malicious enabling. Next, I researched online harassment, not just in terms of cyberbullying, but defamation. If someone used your image or misrepresented a personal event for public clout, there were paths, not easy, not guaranteed, but paths. I made a binder, labeled it June. It was still February, but I wanted a deadline, something that reminded me this wasn't endless. Each night after that, while the rest of the house watched Netflix or scrolled Instagram, I was compiling, sorting, building a case. It was the first time in my life I felt like I was steering the story. I still spoke to no one. I didn't confront Callista. I didn't argue with my mother. I didn't waste time trying to fix anyone's opinion of me. I let them continue thinking I was folding, while I sharpened. A week later, I opened a new email account under a pseudonym. I sent the voice recording and documentation to myself, saved it in the cloud, and backed it up on a USB drive I tucked into the lining of my old purse, just in case. If someone had walked into my room that night, they wouldn't have seen rage or panic. They would have seen order, stacks of printed articles, highlighted passages, notes scribbled in margins. That's what survival started to look like. One night, as I organized the last of the folders, I whispered aloud, "This time, if she hurts me, it won't just be my word against hers. It'll be a matter of law." I wasn't waiting to be rescued anymore. By the following week, my binder was full. I had printed every screenshot of Callista's posts, every smug caption, every shallow comment praising her for her courageous haircut. I had screen-grabbed the photos from my phone, the close-up of my scalp where she'd yanked so hard it bled, and I kept that audio file like it was gold. I backed everything up in 3 places: a password-protected drive on my laptop, a cloud folder under a pseudonym, and a physical USB I slipped into the lining of my old pencil case. Then I emailed it all to one person I knew wouldn't ask too many questions, Professor Hardy, my ethics instructor from college. Subject, in case something happens, no message body. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. By then, I wasn't collecting evidence to prove I was innocent. I was protecting the version of me that wouldn't let them rewrite me. Again. I wasn't planning a press conference. I was building insurance. That Sunday morning, I came down to the kitchen for breakfast. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. The smell of burnt toast lingered, and I knew Callista had already come and gone. Isolde was at the table reading the newspaper, pretending not to notice me. I poured myself a glass of orange juice and sat across from her. A minute passed. Then another. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. Then Callista walked in, phone in hand, scrolling like she hadn't ruined anything. I didn't look up. Not at first. Only after Callista sat down beside our mother did I finally break the silence. "If it happens again," I said quietly, "I won't come to Mom. I'll go to the police." Neither of them moved for a second. Callista scoffed, but it sounded forced. She didn't look up from her phone. Isolde's eyes flicked over her reading glasses and locked on me. "You don't need to threaten your sister." "It's not a threat," I replied. "It's a boundary." Another silence followed, thicker than the last. Callista got up and walked out of the room. Isolde just stared like she didn't recognize me. I let the quiet settle between us, then stood and rinsed my glass. I didn't storm out or slam anything. I simply returned upstairs, closed my door, and sat on the bed. A few minutes later, there was a knock. I didn't answer, but the door opened anyway. Isolde stepped in, arms crossed, her lips thin. "Why would you say something like that in front of her?" she asked. "Are you trying to make things worse than they already are?" I turned to her slowly. "I said it because you weren't going to." "She's your sister." "No," I said. "She's your daughter, and so am I. But you treat us like we play different roles in some drama you wrote." She blinked. I kept going. "I've spent years trying not to upset the balance. You know what I've realized? The balance is broken. And it always has been." "You're exaggerating." "No, I'm remembering, and you can't control that." Isolde opened her mouth to reply, then thought better of it. She didn't shout, didn't slam the door, just turned and left, slowly. It was the quietest retreat I'd ever seen from her, and the most honest. That night, I pulled out my laptop and drafted an email to the university's financial aid office. I told the truth, that I had been assaulted by a family member, that the trauma had disrupted my academic performance, that it had involved people with legal authority over parts of my file. I included attachments, screenshots, photos, the transcript of the audio file. I didn't send it, not yet. Instead, I left the cursor hovering over the send button and sat back in my chair. It wasn't a letter begging for help. It was a record, a notice, a reminder to myself that if they pushed again, I would push back, with everything I had. I closed the lid and turned off the light. Next time they swing, I'll strike back with the law. The email came just after lunch. I was sitting on the back porch with a mug of stale coffee, watching a squirrel try to outsmart the bird feeder, when my phone buzzed. A new message from the university's financial services department. Subject: Scholarship Disbursement. Confirmation. I opened it without thinking, expecting some follow-up form, maybe a thank you note. What I saw instead made my stomach clench. Your scholarship disbursement has been successfully processed and applied to the account ending in 0342. That wasn't my account. I stared at the number, reading it 3 times to be sure I wasn't mistaken. My own account ended in 9911. I'd memorized it, set up direct deposit myself months ago, triple-checked it on every form. I dialed the number listed at the bottom of the message. A woman answered after 3 rings, polite and chirpy, until I gave her my name and told her what was wrong. Let me check that for you." Just one moment. The hold music kicked in, light piano with too much echo. When she returned, her voice had changed. More careful. "It looks like the disbursement was redirected to an alternate account at the request of the guardian listed on file. We have a signature dated from last week authorizing the change." I didn't even hear the rest. My hands felt cold, my face hot. Somehow, I managed to thank her and end the call. Then I sat there, coffee forgotten, heart pounding, trying to hold back the nausea climbing up my throat. I knew exactly what had happened. I didn't rush home. I walked slowly, deliberately. If I had burst through the door screaming, they would have written it off as another outburst. Instead, I waited until dinner, when we were all seated like a portrait of forced civility. I set my phone face up on the table and said evenly, "Why is my scholarship money in a different account?" Isolde didn't look up. Garrison paused mid-cut of his steak. Callista froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "Mom?" I pressed. She set her knife down, folded her napkin, and met my eyes without a hint of remorse. "We needed it." The room went silent. She added, Callista's business has been struggling. She's at a turning point, and this money gave her the opportunity to reset. You can always apply for more. I stared at her, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. That was my tuition, my rent, my future. It's just money, Garrison said, wiping his mouth. You've always had a way of making things bigger than they are. Callista chimed in, casually. It's not like it was going to change your life that much. I stood slowly. You stole from me, Isolde scoffed. Don't be dramatic. My voice didn't rise. You committed fraud, Mom. You signed legal documents, redirected funds not meant for you. Garrison's chair scraped the floor as he stood. That's enough. I'm not finished. Yes, you are, he said, his tone sharp now. You've always stirred things up in this house. You come back here, act like we're the villains, and expect what? Applause? I didn't answer. You want to make this into something criminal? You go right ahead. But don't expect to live under this roof while you do it. Callista stood now too, arms folded, leaning against the doorway like she was watching a soap opera. You're not a victim, Stella. You're just bitter. Because people don't revolve around you. I didn't respond, not with words. I walked out of the dining room, up to my room, and started packing. I didn't take everything, just what I needed. My laptop, my files, my journal, the USB with all my documentation, a week's worth of clothes, a few books. They didn't follow me. When I came back downstairs with my bag, Garrison was back in his seat, cutting meat like nothing had happened. Isolde was on her phone. Callista smirked when I passed. At the front door, I paused. You didn't just take money, I said. You took the last bit of belief I had in this family, and that's something you can't pay back. Then I walked out. I spent the night at Leah's place, an old classmate turned part-time friend. She didn't ask questions when I showed up with a backpack and tired eyes, just handed me a blanket and told me to take the couch. The next morning, I opened my laptop and got to work. I drafted a full report, detailing the unauthorized withdrawal, the forged signature, the misuse of guardianship. I included screenshots, bank notices, a PDF of the email from the financial department. I attached the voice recording of Callista bragging about how Mom and Dad would cover for her, and labeled every file. When I was done, I took a breath. This wasn't just a complaint, it was a case. I reviewed the university's grievance policy, printed their code of conduct, and highlighted every violation. I wrote an affidavit, simple, direct, irrefutable, no begging, no emotional appeals, just the facts. When I finally hit send, it wasn't a cry for help, it was a declaration. They took everything from me. Now I'll take back what's mine, piece by piece. It had been nearly 4 weeks since I walked out of my parents' house. The initial shock had faded, replaced by a routine that wasn't glamorous, but was mine. I spent my days working part-time at a library near campus and my nights organizing documents for the case. I didn't miss the tension, the silence, or the performative dinners. But what I didn't expect was how deep the loss of my grandmother's necklace would cut. One morning, while sipping coffee in Leah's kitchen and scrolling through social media, I stopped cold. There it was. Callista, standing in front of a boutique, holding a bouquet of roses, her hand resting just below her collarbone. Around her neck hung the thin gold chain with the blue enamel pendant, Grandma's necklace, the same one she had promised to give me. The same one I had stored in a locked box with a note inside, written in Grandma's handwriting. For Stella, my heart. I remembered that note like scripture. I had opened that box maybe 3 times since she passed, always gently, always privately, and now it was being worn like a fashion statement for likes and comments. I called my mother that afternoon, not to scream, not to beg, just to confirm what I already knew. Did you give Callista Grandma's necklace? There was a pause on the line. Then Isolde said, You left it behind. I left it in a locked box. She exhaled audibly, the kind of breath she used when trying to make herself sound exhausted by my questions. We thought Callista would appreciate it more. She's going through so much. I wanted to scream, but what good would it do? She wasn't just taking things from me anymore. She was redistributing what wasn't hers, rationalizing it with the same tired excuse. Callista needs it more. Callista deserves it more. And me. And I was just the one who kept finding out too late. Later that week, I was tagged in a group photo from a charity gala organized by one of our distant cousins. I hadn't been invited, not that I would have gone. But as I clicked through the photos, a tightness formed in my chest. Everyone was there. Every cousin, every aunt, uncle, sibling. Callista stood in the center like she was the family's crown jewel. In one image, I was there, but barely. It was an older photo, repurposed for the event slideshow, showing a holiday gathering from 3 years ago. But in the frame, my face had been blurred, intentionally. And over the blur, someone had added a caption. "We grow stronger by leaving pain behind." I stared at the screen, breath caught in my throat. This wasn't carelessness. This was deliberate, a quiet campaign to make me disappear, not just from the house, but from memory. I walked to the store the next day, needing to pick up printer ink and clear my head. As I stood in line, the woman behind me leaned in a little too close and said, "It must be hard when a family turns on you like that." I turned slowly. I didn't recognize her. She wore a church volunteer badge and a kind smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Excuse me?" I said. She tilted her head. "Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard you've had a rough time lately. Families can be difficult, especially when they feel like they can't trust you." I didn't answer. I paid for my ink and walked out into the afternoon sun, breathing heavily. It wasn't just that I was being left out. I was being reframed, rewritten. The story going around town wasn't that Callista had cut my hair and our parents stole my scholarship. It was that I was unstable, dramatic, a burden they had finally been forced to let go of. I opened my phone on the sidewalk and started scrolling again through the recent family posts. Quotes like, "Some storms clear the way," and "You can't heal where you're hurt," were attached to photos of Callista smiling beside Isolda. She was stepping into my space, my place in the family, my role in the narrative, and no one was stopping her. That evening, I sat down at my laptop. I opened the email chain with my attorney and added a new message. Attached was the screenshot of Callista wearing the necklace. Another image of the charity slideshow, with my blurred face. I recorded a short voice memo and uploaded it. In it, I said, "They're not just ignoring me, they're documenting the erasure. Every caption, every edit, every retelling. I'm keeping score." I hit send. Then I opened a new social media account under my own name. I didn't follow anyone. I didn't post selfies or quotes. I uploaded 4 things. A photo of the necklace next to Grandma's handwritten note. A copy of the scholarship award email. A screenshot of the financial department's confirmation that the money went to an unauthorized account. A 30-second audio clip of Callista's brag about ruining her face. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need to. By morning, it had 100 shares. The messages started slowly. Old classmates, a neighbor from down the street, even a former babysitter. I had no idea. "I always wondered why you disappeared. I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner." I didn't respond to most of them. I didn't need sympathy. I needed clarity. Let them whisper. Let them scroll. Let them finally see. They think they're writing history. I'm preparing the correction. After the screenshots spread, it was only a matter of time. By the next Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a call from my lawyer, Anna Brooks. Her voice, calm and measured, cut through the whirlwind in my head like a rope tossed to someone in deep water. "Are you ready?" she asked. I said yes. I don't know if it was the truth, but it was the only answer left. The next day, I walked into her office in downtown Bakersfield. Not the courthouse, yet. Just her office, a converted bungalow near a park, quiet and unassuming. She handed me the civil suit documents, pages and pages, but every word mattered. My name, Callista's name, Isolda's. Charges included fraudulent misappropriation of educational funds, civil assault, and willful emotional distress. We included the voice recordings, screenshots of the necklace, the photos from the gala where my face had been blurred out with poetic captions, the bank transfers, every detail we could legally back. Anna looked me square in the eye. This isn't just about holding them accountable. This is about setting precedent, emotionally, legally, You okay with what that means? I'm more than okay, I said. I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Filing the suit felt less like revenge and more like returning something to its rightful place. The courthouse hearing was scheduled 2 weeks later. It wasn't a dramatic trial. No jury, no reporters camped outside. But it didn't have to be loud to be real. I didn't dress to impress. I wore navy pants and a simple blouse. My hair, still uneven in places, was tucked into a clean ponytail. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't want to hide. Callista showed up late, in full glam. Isolde came in quietly and took a seat in the back. Garrison wasn't there. When the judge read the list of grievances, I didn't cry, I didn't shake, I didn't even look at them. I looked at the judge, at the documents, at Anna. Let the facts speak. 3 days later, while I was shelving books at the library, a local blog published the story. Nothing flashy, just a concise headline. Scholarship stolen, sister silenced, a family legal drama hits Bakersfield. I didn't even know it had run until someone left a printed copy in the break room with a sticky note that read, "Is this you?" By evening, it had made its way to a local news site. Then another, small waves at first, but enough to stir the still water my family had been hiding in. That weekend, I got a call from an old neighbor, Mrs. Lane. I let it go to voicemail. Her message said, "I saw the article, honey, and I believe you. I always did." I played it twice, just to hear those last words again. Isolde refused to comment to the news outlets. Callista, of course, took another route. She posted a short video to her story, perfect lighting, curated sadness in her eyes. Caption, "Real queens don't explain, they elevate." The comments? Brutal. Elevate after stealing your sister's tuition? You cut her hair and stole her money and you're calling yourself a queen? Shame on your whole family. Callista limited comments within hours. Then she deleted the post. Then she locked her account. At church the following Sunday, I'm told the whispers started. The same women who used to compliment Isolde on her perfect daughters now asked quiet questions in the parking lot. By Tuesday, the church parenting committee graciously invited her to step down. I got an email from the university's ethics board. They had begun reviewing the fraudulent scholarship disbursement. Callista's boutique lost 2 sponsors. Brands that had once used her for empowered woman campaigns cut ties overnight. I didn't make a statement. I didn't post a video. I didn't throw a celebration. I stayed quiet, and for the first time, that quiet didn't feel like erasure. It felt like power. When the final ruling came in, I was at home with my laptop open and a mug of tea beside me. The judge's decision was clear. Callista was ordered to pay restitution equal to the full scholarship amount. Isolde was removed as a legal guardian over my records and accounts, permanently. I was awarded damages for emotional distress and loss of educational opportunity. But the part that stayed with me came at the end. The judge, after reading everything, looked up and said, "This wasn't a moment of madness. This was a pattern of silencing." That one sentence felt heavier than the rest of the ruling combined. Not because it hurt, but because someone outside of me finally said it out loud. They didn't lose their daughter. They lost their control. It took me 4 hours to drive from Bakersfield to Sacramento. 4 hours of silence, broken only by the occasional hum of the road beneath me and the static of an old country station that faded in and out. I didn't bring much with me. A suitcase, a few books, a new journal, and the box Grandma's necklace used to be in, still empty, but I couldn't throw it away. I found a small studio apartment on the east side of town, walking distance to a charter school where I'd just been hired to teach part-time. The place had squeaky floors and a leaky faucet, but the windows opened wide and let in the morning sun. It was mine, all of it, every dusty corner, every quiet moment. I started small, growing herbs on the window ledge, painting one wall in a soft green just because I liked how it looked in the afternoon light. I made my own coffee in the mornings, watered my plants before work, and spent my evenings in stillness, letting the peace settle in places that used to ache. I didn't post anything about my new life. No new chapter captions, no dramatic before and after photos. I wasn't interested in anyone else's validation anymore. Some mornings, I'd stand in front of the mirror and run my fingers through my hair. It had grown just past my jaw now, soft at the ends, no longer jagged. Sometimes I still winced when I caught a glimpse of myself from the side. Memories had a way of hiding in angles, but mostly, I just looked. One Thursday evening in late fall, as the sun dipped behind the skyline and the city turned gold, I checked my voicemail after work. It was a name I hadn't seen in years. "Hi, Stella. This is Ms. Caro. I was your literature teacher in junior year. I saw the news this week, the article online. I just wanted to say I always believed you. I didn't know how to help back then, and I'm sorry. But I believe you." I sat down on the edge of my bed and hit play again. I didn't cry, but I listened twice. It didn't undo anything, didn't fix the years of being silenced or brushed aside, but it gave shape to something I hadn't realized I needed. Acknowledgement from someone outside the family, someone who saw me, even when I was invisible. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at my new address. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakably Callista's. Neat. Controlled. I opened it slowly, not sure what I expected. Maybe more accusations, maybe a performance in prose. Instead, it read, "Stella, we were both victims of how we were raised. I forgive you. I hope you can do the same. Callista." No apology. No admission, just a neat redirection. She didn't say what she did, she didn't own it, but she forgave me, as if I'd wronged her. A day after the letter came, my phone rang. It was Isolde. I watched the screen blink with her name for a full minute before sending it to voicemail. She didn't call again. Garrison never reached out. I wasn't surprised. I didn't reply to Callista's letter. I tucked it into a drawer and left it there. Not because I was waiting, but because I didn't want to throw it away until I was sure I didn't need it. One quiet Sunday, after a long walk along the river, I sat at my desk with a cup of tea and opened my journal. I hadn't written in a while. Life had been steady, even good, but part of me had been afraid to reflect. Afraid that if I put it all into words, I might reopen something that had finally started to scab. But I wrote anyway. They will tell their version of events, and maybe some will believe it. That's not my concern anymore. I'm not here to fix the narrative. I'm here to build my life. I paused, sipped my tea, then continued. The scars didn't disappear, but they did clarify the boundaries, where I end and where they no longer get to begin. I wasn't healed. Healing is not a clean process. It doesn't announce its arrival. It sneaks in through quiet nights and steady routines, through saying no, through not answering the phone. But I was free. Not because someone pulled me out, not because someone came to my rescue, because I chose to walk away and not look back. I wasn't saved. I chose to survive, and that's enough. Sometimes, the ones who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you in ways no stranger ever could. But silence isn't strength when it's used to bury the truth. What would you do if your own family tried to erase you? If this story moved you or reminded you of something you've lived through, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that uncover the quiet battles people fight every day.